After a huge splash with Kyle Tucker, it's been mediocre move after mediocre move for the Cubs. Is this a sign that Jed and crew are done spending? Not so fast. What's up, Cubs fans? You know, sometimes it's my job to come on here and be realistic, to look objectively at things, and then there's other times where I need to be a little bit more optimistic for all of Cubs Nation out there. This is one of those times, but there's some good news. This is not fake optimism. It's backed by facts. And hey, if this is your first time checking out the Setup Man channel, my name is Kyle Stanley. We are a Cubs YouTube channel bringing you analysis, bringing you great interviews, and we're always working on giving you, the fans, a voice for your beloved Cubbies. That sounds like something you want to be a part of. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Now, on January 10th, just a few days ago, we saw Colin Rea get signed by the Cubs, and I was okay with this. Innings eater, had over 167 innings pitched in 2024. He was the above 1 WAR player, and in a market where pitching is outrageous right now, he was only $5 million for 2025 and then a club option for 2026. I'm okay with it, but then I went to Cubs Twitter and it was a little bit of a different story. So what you're looking at on your screen is a question that I posed to X and Cubs fans on X, just asking, why are you legitimately upset about the Rea signing? As you can see, in 2024, a 1.2 WAR player according to Baseball Reference, 4.29 ERA, 167 plus innings. So let's give some love to a few of you that are always active on X with me. Steven says, not upset if it's a depth signing, but if they're signing a 34-year-old turning 35 this season who already has almost had a career ERA of 5 to be our 5th starter, that's laughable. Brad Miller says, my biggest thing is that it tells me they're more focused on adding depth than a frontline starter. If they can still go out and get a top-line guy, then I like it. But if this is it for the rotation, it leaves a lot to be desired. Brent says, because everyone wants the Cubs to sign an ace. This ain't that. Definitely not. A few of you did like it. Cubs PS podcast Mike Waller says, I think it's a solid move, given the number of guys that the Cubs have that could compete for the 5th starter role, but didn't even crack 60 innings last year due to injury. He's referring to Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, Cade Horton. The list goes on. He's a stable option to put in at the number 5 spot to eat innings, and he could swing to the pen as well. That's kind of how I viewed it too, Mike. Joe 2016 says, great depth piece. Oliver, because we're afraid that's the last starting pitcher move. Austin, like Oliver, because I truly believe this is their final starting pitching addition. I think they're going cheap this year. Pause button here, Cubs fans. Let's take one step back. Let's again look a little bit with some rationale, some actual facts here. And I get it. I'm on the exact same page. When in an offseason where you say you need starting pitching and your biggest fish that you've gotten so far is Matthew Boyd, I'm frustrated too. But just because Colin Rea signs on January 10th does not mean that the Cubs are done with spending. Heck, this happened last year. On February 23rd, 2024, going into spring training last year, the Cubs needed to re-sign Cody Bellinger, and then instead they get David Peralta and Dominic Smith. It was like all this air was just let out of our balloon, like we were going to sign Cody Bellinger, a all-star first baseman and outfielder who had a great 2023 with the Cubs. And then you signed David Peralta, who's an outfielder at the tail end of his career, and Dominic Smith, who hasn't put together a complete MLB productive season. This, a lot like the Colin Rea move, felt like, hey, we need a star, we need a big guy to come in and be a savior, and we settle for this? But guess what happened 4 days later? Cody Bellinger signed with the Cubs. Now, I'm not saying this means that because Colin Rea is happening right now that the Cubs are definitely getting Jack Flaherty, or they're definitely getting Pablo Lopez in a trade, or Roki Sasaki is going to come in and be the hero. I'm not saying that. I'm especially a little bit concerned after having Jesse Rogers on my show, ESPN reporter, talking about the financials of the Cubs when he said this.
And so I think a lot of people, I called it industry observers, feel like the Cubs are going to wait until the next collective bargaining agreement is negotiated before they really dip back into the deep end of the free agent pool. Fans think that they're printing money daily.
Sure.
Owners say no. It's a valuation business. The comparison that was made to me, when you buy a Picasso, you are losing money every year on that Picasso because you're paying a big insurance premium. But when you sell the Picasso, you make it all back and then some.
But on the flip side, other Cubs reporters, Patrick Mooney and Shahadev Sharma of Northside Territory, were pretty confident the Cubs were going to reallocate that $25-ish million that they had offloaded to the Yankees in the Cody Bellinger trade.
They have to get this right. The Cody Bellinger money has to be reallocated at least in full. Obviously, they should just keep spending more when you're this close. Right. But take all that money and you have to deploy those resources the right way. I mean, that's kind of obvious.
So after hearing both sides, it kind of leaves you a little bit confused, right?
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
So I went to the Google machine and decided to look at what the Cubs' recent payroll looked like. So what you're looking at right now is a snapshot of the Cubs' payroll according to Fangraphs versus the luxury tax threshold in each of the last 6 seasons dating back to 2019. So if you look at this, in 19, 20, 23, and 24, they were all either over or hovering around the tax threshold. Over by 36 and 19, over by 9 in 2020, hovering right around it in 2023, just under it, and then Jed accidentally, went over in 2024. The only 2 years that they were under the luxury tax threshold by a significant amount was 2021 and 2022. So what was happening in those years? A rebuild. Simple as that. When you're rebuilding a team, you're not as likely to spend. So where it stands currently on Fangraphs here in 2025, the Cubs are right around $198 million versus the tax threshold is $241 million. That leaves, for all you mathematicians out there, $43 million. Now, if this was a rebuild season, yes, 100%, they would probably stop right now. But going and getting Kyle Tucker is not a rebuild season. So for this reason alone, this should be a sign to you that the Cubs will be spending more money. Question is, how much? Do they go past it? Probably not. I wouldn't expect that at all. So if you're right there, let's back up for a second. Typically, the Cubs like to prepare in a way in which they have some money going into the season, just in case at the trade deadline they say, hey, let's make another move. Let's go and either get to the tax threshold or surpass it because it's time to win now. A lot of experts have been operating in that kind of camp this entire offseason, expecting the Cubs to be right around $230 million going into the offseason. Now that we've seen a little bit of these money troubles and a little bit more information about the Cubs needing to operate this fully like a business and show P&Ls to private equity investors, I would imagine they are a little more conservative this year and say they go into the season around that 220 to 225 mark. So where does that leave the Cubs for all the holes that they have? And yes, there are a lot of holes, especially if there are injuries. I actually did an entire video about this. Make sure to check it out. It's in the description. It also just popped up on your screen. The video will show you how they're really 1 or 2 injuries away from a catastrophe. So they need more relief pitchers. They need another starter at least, and they need some sort of infield depth. For relief pitchers, I don't know if they're going to spend on even a Kirby Yates, which is a 1-year, probably $8 to $10 million deal. That's just how unsure I am of where this money is going to be allocated. They're definitely not going to spend on a Tanner Scott. So sorry if you were holding out for that. Infield depth, don't expect Alex Bregman to come in, especially now that a lot of reports are saying that Matt Shaw is going to be the third baseman at opening day. It's his position to lose. So that leaves them with pretty much getting depth, not a starter. And starting pitching, well, yeah, sure, there's Roki Sasaki and everyone and their mom wants him. And yes, the Cubs have been rumored to still be in the mix with him. Same with Jack Flaherty in the mix. But I wouldn't expect a Flaherty. I, at this point, am really unsure that Roki Sasaki is an actual option. So this kind of leaves us with, well, Kyle, if they're not going to go and get these free agents, like where are you expecting? Well, it's going to be a trade in my mind, or it's going to be, especially for that infield depth, somewhere on the free agent market. Maybe a Paul DeJong, maybe a Johan Mancada, maybe a Justin Turner. Guys like that just provide a little bit of flexibility and veteran presence on the infield. As for the trades, it has to happen. At this point, guys, it has to happen. The Cubs need to trade for a reliever or a starting pitcher or both at the same time. And here's the thing, temper those expectations. Payroll will go up and the farm system is going to go down. I know a lot of you want to hold on to the prospects, and I know a lot of you want to see James Triantos be the next Ben Zobrist. You want to see Kevin Alcantara sprinting all over the outfield. You want to see Owen Casey dropping bombs like Kyle Schwarber. I want all of this, but the reality is not every single one of these prospects can make it to the major leagues, especially with the logjam that the Cubs have with a lot of positions. So their biggest value right now is going to be via a trade. I'm not condoning another trade where it's a 1-year rental like a Kyle Tucker for one of your top prospects. Not at all. But If you can give up a Kevin Alcantara, if you can give up a James Triantos for a legitimate starting pitcher and or reliever with years of control, at this point, if it costs you money, it costs you money. But that's the kind of value that that prospect brings at this time. So just don't be surprised when that kind of move happens, either before the season starts or during season. This is especially true with how much the starting pitching market is costing right now. To see guys going off the market at $25 a year like Nathan Eovaldi, a number 2 pitcher. Matthew Boyd of the Cubs, $14.5 million per year. Walker Buehler, who had a mid-5 ERA in 2024, got $21.5 million for 1 year in 2025. It's crazy right now. So you know that starting pitching is going to cost you either money, prospects, or both. Just get ready for that. But a move is going to happen. Expect it. Expect it maybe even before CubsCon starts in a few days. Hope to see you there. But if I'm wrong, some of you out there get to say, I told you so, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, this is my educated guess. But if I am wrong, you can assume that Jed is on his way out.